to you from underneath a peach blossom. It's time for an episode of Be Awesome. Find positivity throughout your life and work, just like our mascot rooster, Steve the Jerk.
Hello, Be Awesome listeners. This is a crazy and wild couple of days down here in Raleigh, North Carolina. We are recording episode 29 of the Be Awesome podcast, third one in a day that I'm recording. And I'm super excited because I've just got awesome people all around here. And one of them that I wanted to grab is a good friend of mine, David Marcus, who's from De Toledo High School in California. Welcome to the podcast, David.
Hey, thanks so much. It's great to be here. I got to tell you, it's something I've been looking forward to, and this is just a great beginning of a great day. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Now, David, let's talk about you first, then I want to get into an experience you had. Tell us a little bit about you and who you are, what you do, and all that fun stuff.
Great, happy to. So right now I'm called the campus business manager of our school, but really I'm the director of facilities. I'm in charge of their maintenance and their security and their rentals and construction, and I really love our job that we do there and my participation in it. Probably even more so is that our school was started back in 2002, and I was on the founding board back in 2001. So I had the honor of being a founding board member and moving into a paid position a few years later. I was their first business manager, and then once we moved to our own place, now I'm their director of facilities. I thought I had less work when I moved to our new place, director of facilities, and boy, I was so wrong. I must work. I work a lot of hours,
yeah.
But I love it, and so I love doing that job. I love the people that I work around, and a lot of excitement there. And when I use the word love, I also love to share some of those things that I've gotten use of and let other people have that experience also. It's been a really great time there, and I look forward to continuing that. Before that, I was actually in accounting and did some quality assurance work, so I've got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But De Toledo High School, that's where we're at right now, and it's a great place to be and great future.
So you're in year 17. How many students? How big is the campus?
We're a 6-acre campus. We've got 2 large buildings, about 100,000 square feet, and 400 students, grades 9 through 12. We're a faith-based, we're a Jewish high school. We only accept Jewish students, but we're surrounded by all kinds of other schools, and we interact with quite a few for many reasons. And actually one of the strengths and important items that I believe is that you have communications with your colleagues, you share information, we all learn from each other. It doesn't matter if you're faith-based or you're public or you're private. We're all in this together. It's education. We want our kids to have a great education, and whatever we can do to make that possible, it's a team effort. It's not just a me effort.
Yeah. And where is De Toledo High School?
West Hills is in the San Fernando Valley of Los Angeles. We're out in the West End. We're close to cities of Calabasas, Thousand Oaks, which are actually go towards Agoura, that area of the valley. And it's some people call it a different area, that being the San Fernando Valley. Some people won't even go into, quote unquote, the city. But we are one big city. We are really the city of Los Angeles. And I was born and bred in that city, and proud of that.
So perfect into where we are, and what I want to do is put everybody in a perspective as to what we're going to talk about here today with you, which is the wildfires. So I want you to share with the audience, what that week was like leading up to that, you and I were just talking about it, and I remember it was the mass shooting in Thousand Oaks, which is really close to, where you were as well. But to put into perspective before we get into it, how close did the fires get to your campus, and how far did they get to your home?
It actually got within a couple of miles of our campus. There was one night, I'm not sure, I think it was Friday night, that I walked out to the main boulevard and could see flames down the road. I drove a little bit closer to get a better idea and speak with the police department as to more specifics, but they were very, very close, and close enough that it was scary, and that we needed to have possible answers just in case. As a matter of fact, it was Friday night, and there was a group staying overnight, a group of kids. They were having a special retreat, and a lot of them were afraid. They were wondering, what would happen if there's something happened to their parents' house, and even more so, what would happen if something happened where the flames got close to the school. And I actually had about 3 different conversations with the group, trying to reassure them that, first of all, the flames were not going that direction, thank goodness, but also there were a lot of homes in between the flames and us, and if something were to go the wrong way, the fire department would be with us well in advance, and we'd be taken care of, God forbid. Thank goodness nothing did happen, but they were really close. I live a little bit further on, so the flames were not really affected to our house, which is about another 8 miles away, but it became very, very real when I was on the premises at school.
So it would have been very easy for you to stay home and be safer during these fires, because you weren't closer to the fires and you weren't on campus, you were further away. And you and your wife, Lana, she was there with you for a lot of this time, if not all of it. I know that part of it anyway when I was talking to you. You and your team at the campus chose to keep the doors open and to provide needed food, water supplies, clothing at times, whatever it was needed to people that were being affected by the fires. And you were within harm's reach these fires were moving pretty fast. And if I'm wrong about any of this, tell me, but this is from what I read and what I talked to you about. It was a little bit hairier. You made it, even though you were exhausted at times in some of your updates, you probably made it not as bad as it probably really was, as far as the situation, as far as the dangers and things like that. Take us through what that was like to decide, hey, we're going to stay open. We're going to stay open 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. We're going to come together as a team. We're going to help people. We're going to provide them with hope and comfort in the worst of situations, all knowing that you could have been at home in a much safer environment. Was there worry through that? Like, talk me through what that experience was like.
Let me go back a little bit. I want to go back to the Wednesday before the fire started. That was a terrible day in our area. There was the Borderline Bar and Grill in Thousand Oaks, and there was a terrible mass shooting, mass killing. And that was one of those situations where people knew people. I know there was one of our teachers knew one of the kids who was in there and dove out a window, and thank goodness made it out alive. So our community as a whole, that whole area, was in grief and mourning and in unbelievable, what happened and how could this happen. And this is not a school, or it's not a synagogue or a place of worship where, unfortunately, we've had many of these mass killings. This was a bar, a place that we all go to. So that's where we started. That was Wednesday night. Thursday comes, and these fires start up. And Thursday night, I'm in bed. It's close to 11 o'clock, and I get a call from a rabbi friend saying, look, I need some help. We've got all of our congregants. They've got places to stay. All of them have been relocated from their homes. They've had to leave their homes. They've got places to stay. But what they don't have a place to go during the day. They don't have a place where their kids can play because all the schools are closed. They don't have a place where they can relax a little bit. They can't go to work. They don't have a place where there is someone who can talk to them, where they can get some food, they can get some comfort, and just speak with people and relax a little bit. And I said, Paul, what time? You want me to meet you there right now? And he said, no. So the next morning we were there very early. We're getting our place ready. At the same time, the school had to decide whether we were going to be open or not that Friday. And we decided to close the school for that Friday because a lot of our students and teachers were affected by the fires. Either they were sent out of their homes or they couldn't get to the school because of the different fire blockades. The fire was in many different areas, unfortunately, and was affecting people in different areas likewise. So transportation was a challenge. So although it was sad news, we were closed on Friday, which meant our place was empty and open for anyone and everyone who wanted to come. That morning, that Friday morning, we started to have people show up. And there was food that showed up, and things happen unbelievably when people are in tragedy, and all kinds of nice things were occurring. And then about 10 o'clock, we got a meeting together. There were all these different people from different organizations. There were a couple of camps that were leveled. One of the camp directors was there. There were a couple of schools involved, some synagogues. And there's a meeting of maybe 15 or so people in our conference room. And the question is, okay, what are we going to do? How do we organize as a team as opposed to everyone doing one thing together, as opposed to one by one by one? Let's do things in mass and use that as a strength. And we had a meeting. Actually, they had a meeting. I was participating. And some of those items started to come up. And during that, I said, you know what? I know someone, this is his profession. He deals in emergency situations. Let's get him out here. So in a couple of hours, a gentleman by the name of Chris Jaffe from Jaffe Emergency Services was out there, and he was leading a meeting for all of these different organizations as to what the next steps should be. And those meetings, be it phone or be it in person, continued actually for another couple of weeks. So that was great that started at that point in time. But coming really to your question, Josh, it's a non-issue. I mean, something is there, people need help, and I've got the ability to do it. Going to be there. It's just, you don't think about it. You don't think twice. And I imagine that's what happens in many, many situations. One of the underlying things that came out of this, and actually started this, is there have been, unfortunately, so many tragedies that we've faced. Starting with 9/11, you've got floods and hurricanes in the South, in New Orleans, in Florida, Houston, etc. And my feeling, for the most part, is I can give blood and I can give money. They don't want clothes. They don't want anything else. I can't get on a bus and get out there to help them. This is all I can do is give them blood out of my system and my cash. This was a situation where I could give me and I could give it all. And I was happy to do that. And it was not about me at all. It was about helping other people and getting other people to join in that, on that team to help those who really needed it. Because there were people that totally lost their homes, 100%. There were people that weren't sure if they were going to lose their house or not. There were synagogues, there were schools that were in the almost situation. It was very scary, and thank goodness I have never been there, but I wanted to do what I could do. So that's where we started from.
And that's, you brought up a couple pieces there that are interesting to me because, you brought up some of the things that have happened. And, sadly, when we think about schools in crisis, Columbine just hit the 20th, it was the 20th anniversary this year. And on the 20th anniversary, there was that young woman from Florida that went out. They had 27 schools canceled the week of, searching for her because they thought she was going to do something. And, countless others since then. And we think about crisis with schools that were running away from the schools, we're evacuating the schools, we're locking down the schools. Very rarely are we thinking about when something like this happens that we're opening up the schools and what to do and how do we do it and what does that look like. And I think putting it in a situation like yours is almost like not even, we talk about, if, we always say that, you used to say when I was growing up, it was like, oh, if this happens, or if this happens, because it's highly unlikely that many of the things that we deal with today were happening 25 and 30 years ago. And now, sadly, it's a when it happens. Something's going to happen at some capacity to every school that's going to impact it in one way or another, whether it's being a shelter for a devastating act of God or a fire, or it is an active shooter and we're evacuating and getting everybody out and trying to get people safe. It's incredible to think that you had literally less than 24 hours from the start and awareness of this fire, a ton of emotion and affected people from the bar shooting, and you had 24 hours from there to really, and it didn't sound like it took 24 seconds for you guys to say, okay, we're going to do something, now we need to figure out what it is, and then put the action in play. And then you guys leveraged social media to get the word out of what you were doing, what you guys needed for donations. There was I'm trying to think, it was the head of the school or who it was that was walking through your cool, clear gates there that you have at the entrance and kind of showing the people that were there. And I remember seeing some pictures of these people, like you said, they've lost everything. They have nothing. And they're sitting in your buildings, passing the time in a comfortable setting, drinking some water, and they're smiling. Like they're happy that they're there. They're appreciative that they're there. They're not like joyous and like, hey, I lost everything, happy days. But they're smiling because they're appreciative that people like you and your team stepped up and gave them some place to sort through, think through, be appreciative for being alive. I mean, what was that like? Like that just had to have been just an overwhelming emotional experience that I couldn't ever imagine unless you're in it.
You don't think of it that way when you're doing it. You think of, I've got to do this, and what do we need to do to make it happen? So there were two things going on. One is at some point in time, which was like maybe late Sunday, probably on Monday actually, because Monday was Veterans Day, so we didn't have to worry. School was closed again. But we had to be concerned, and we made some decisions internally in our school as to what type of, how open could we be when school gets back in session. Because really we are a school and we do have to educate, and we've got to make sure that all the classrooms or whatnot are available, but what can we compromise on? So that was one area that we had to make some decisions on. The other was on a more positive and a note of people giving in. It was like, if we need something, okay, fine. So I talked to the person in charge of our parent organization, and we've got a Jag Shack, this is what we call our student store, and there's food there. And the attitude was, take it. Whatever you need, take it. It's small money. It's small stuff, but if there are people there who need to have food and need to have some enjoyment, just take the stuff. We even talked about the possibility of using our kitchen. Now, I mentioned that we're a Jewish school, so our kitchen, it's a kosher kitchen. And so there are certain things that can and can't go on in the kitchen. But the bottom line is when it comes to a person's life and getting them food so that they can sustain and making it happen, sometimes you make some changes. We didn't need to use our kitchen, but these were considerations that were made. It's like, what do we need to do to make these people feel as whole as they can internally? We're not going to do it for the most part because they've lost, some of the people have totally lost all their belongings. But what can we do inside of them to make them feel a little bit better?
Have you seen any of them, the people that lost everything, that were spending a bit of time there since the fires? Like, have you kept in contact with many of them, or do they come by and say thank you? Are they part of your community and your school where there's students that had family members that lost everything? Like, what is the after effect of all of that, and what is that? Are there any stories that came out of that?
The only thing that I can share is that one of the groups was a synagogue that we we know well, my wife and I, and we've started to go to some of their synagogue different items that they had. As a matter of fact, there was one evening where they had they honored different people for different portions that they did in helping out. And I was asked to be one of those people who was honored during the Festival of Hanukkah, which is rededication. But in going back there, I go back there as someone who's just interested in participating in religious services. But there are people that come up to me that remember me, and it's very nice. I mean, it's not something that I search out for, but it's nice that we made a difference. I know we made a difference. That wasn't the reason that we did it. We did it to help people out. And if someone comes back or they don't come back, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I was just thinking the emotional side of things. I mean, for me, in a couple of situations that I've been, and you're right, you get right into it, and it's just, this is what we're going to do, this is the task at hand. But afterwards, the emotional piece to it just kind of gets like, almost, it could get overwhelming. It could get like, when you think about it, or when you see it, or when people talk about it, you go, wow, we did all of that, and we accomplished so much, and we impacted so many, and we did such, and then you're emotionally kind of like taken aback, because that had to be just, I flew over the devastated land, for lack of a better word, a number of weeks later, going up to Alaska, and it just took I wasn't on the ground floor, I wasn't where you were, and just being up at, flying up over, because we flew in LA and then up along where the fires had hit, and just seeing it from a distance was just, it was emotionally just devastating for me. I was just sitting here just, literally crying in my airplane seat, thinking about the people on the ground that lost their family members, lost their pets, lost their homes, lost everything that they could possibly think of that they could hold on to. I don't know. I just think that would just be a huge emotional experience at some level.
And what's ironic also is that I just did a seminar yesterday, as a matter of fact, on crisis management. This is not something that you talk about in crisis management when you're dealing with someone else's crisis as to what to do for them. It's opened eyes. And I've got to tell you, there are so many people that were partners in this. So many internally at our school. And of course, they had to make it possible that it was okay. But as we went on in future weeks, there was still usage of our facilities. And there were many people that just made things happen. There was a dinner that they had that a nearby restaurant gave them for almost free. Just many people making it happen. It was a team effort, and I was proud to be a part of it.
Yeah,
I was honored to be a part of it.
That's great. And so now we're 5 months later. How are things being built back up? Is it still, when you drive that 2 miles, the fire line, is it still, everything's, that's going to take years and years to rebuild and get back. But how close to life as normal is it, or does it ever get back to normal, or is this your new normal?
No, I think it's a new normal. It doesn't get back to normal. There will be people who will rebuild. There will be people who didn't have enough insurance or any insurance or enough for a house. There are people who moved out of the area because they don't want to be a part of it. They don't want to be reminded of it. There are some blocks where only 1 or 2 homes stood up and everything else is black around them.
Wow.
It's a negative new normal.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm just, I've heard countless stories throughout that whole ordeal that went on. And as I told you, I was up in Alaska right after that for the earthquakes. And it's amazing to see the resilience of our Americans, the fact that, we will rebuild. We will. There are some that will leave, and there's sadly that didn't have the coverage
Right.
that they needed and they have to relocate. But it's amazing how many people have said, we're not going anywhere and we're not letting this hold us back. And that's just an incredible thing to see for humans as a whole. So I think we're going to get the boot here in about 2 minutes. Is there anything else that we missed that you want to cover or share with the world, or David Marcus nugget of knowledge maybe?
No, it's just what I will share is that if you're an organization, to make sure that you've got a mass communication system where you can get communications out immediately. I know there are many that don't have them. They're easily that you can have on your computer or on your cell phone. So I highly recommend that as an application. It was something that you just do things like this.
Yeah.
This is who you are. It provided a really great possibility for our students to interact once they get back to school with some of the kids. Something that's major important to us is kindness, and it showed how we as a school and the school community were being kind and also letting the kids participate in that. So I hate to say it was a win-win. It was a terrible, tragic win-win. But if you're going to have a tragedy, let's find some good in it, and let's do what we need to do to help out our fellow mankind.
That's a heck of a way to close out, David. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you as a friend, as someone that I've gotten to know over the years. I really just think you're an awesome human. You make a bigger impact and a difference than you give yourself credit for, and that's probably part of what makes you so awesome. And I thank you for taking the time to sit here on this little podcast we're doing in a soon-to-be breakout room for a class. So we got another day and a half here, so we'll be sure to. We're going to go get some lunch now. So anyone that wants to get a hold of you, you're on social media. Is there someplace that they can maybe follow along if you're doing any of your crisis management classes? Or
Contact me. Probably the best way is my email, which is first initial last name D Marcus, Marcus at dths.org. I'd love to hear from you, and I'm passionate about sharing. Crisis management is one of the areas, but facilities in general, that's something that's a forte of mine, and love sharing with other people and hearing about other people's stories, and if I or people I know can assist.
Perfect.
Thanks so much.
Perfect. Well, in the meantime, to get a hold of me, you can, for the podcast, it's Josh@BeAwesome, and that's BeAusm.com. You like the podcast, make sure to do a rating and review, send me an email, you get a free t-shirt. And in the meantime, in order to be awesome, you got to do awesome. Have a great day.